Right now, you are doing something that no other creature on Earth can do. You are taking invisible air, pushing it through a small opening in your throat, shaping it with your tongue and lips, and turning it into meaning, into emotion, into ideas that exist nowhere in the physical world. You just read the word love, and your brain knew exactly what it meant. Not the letters. Not the sound. The feeling behind it. The memory attached to it. The weight of it. A dog cannot do that. A chimpanzee cannot do that. No animal that has ever lived on this planet could do what you just did, without even thinking about it. So how did we get here? How did a species that once communicated with nothing but grunts and gestures end up building the most powerful tool in the history of life on Earth? Not stone. Not fire. Not metal. Words. Language is so natural to us that we never stop to question it. We wake up talking. We fall asleep mid-sentence. We think in words. We dream in words. We feel things we cannot even experience until we find the right word to describe them. But there was a time, not that long ago in the full scale of Earth's history, when none of this existed. No words. No sentences. No stories. No questions. No way to say, I am afraid. I love you. What happens when we die? The journey from that silence to this conversation is one of the greatest mysteries science has ever tried to solve. And the answers are stranger and more beautiful than anyone expected. Here is the problem with studying the origin of language. It leaves no fossils. A bone lasts millions of years. A footprint can survive in stone long enough for us to find it. But a word disappears the moment it is spoken. There is nothing to dig up. Nothing to carbon date. Nothing to hold under a microscope. For a long time, scientists simply gave up. In 1866, the Linguistics Society of Paris did something extraordinary. They officially banned all papers on the origin of language. Not because they were not interested, because nobody could agree on anything. Every theory seemed as good as every other theory. And every theory seemed impossible to prove. That ban lasted almost 100 years. 100 years of silence about the origin of speech. Until new tools arrived. DNA sequencing. Brain imaging. Archaeological discoveries that nobody was looking for. And slowly, the pieces began to appear. Not in the places scientists expected. In the hands. In the throat. In a single gene. And in the strange habits of people sitting around doing nothing. The leading theory among scientists today is that language did not begin in the mouth. It began in the hands. Watch a chimpanzee for long enough, and you will see something remarkable. They gesture. They point. They reach. They push things away. They hold out their hands asking for food in a way that any human watching immediately understands. Primates have been communicating with their bodies for millions of years, long before throats were built for speech. And the evidence suggests our ancestors started exactly there. Pointing is not as simple as it sounds. When you point at something, you are doing something philosophically complex. You are saying there is something over there that exists in your mind, and I want it to exist in your mind too. You are sharing attention. You are creating a shared reality between two separate brains. No animal points naturally except humans and great apes. And pointing is the foundation of everything. Because once you can share attention, you can share information. And once you can share information, the only limit is how much your body can express. Which, for a while, was not much. But then, the hands started talking to the face. And the face started talking to the throat. And something new began. Here is a fact that will genuinely stop you. Every mammal on Earth, except adult humans, can breathe and swallow at the same time. A dog can drink water and breathe simultaneously. A baby human can do it too. But somewhere around the age of 3 months, something changes in the human throat. The larynx, the voice box, descends. It drops lower in the throat than in any other species on Earth. And that descent creates a space. A resonating chamber above the voice box that no other animal has. That space is why humans can produce such an extraordinary range of sounds. Vowels. Consonants. Tones. Whispers. The full complex architecture of speech. A chimpanzee larynx sits too high. It simply cannot make the sounds that human language requires. But this descent came with a cost. A serious one. Because that same low larynx means the food passage and the air passage cross in our throats. Which is why humans choke. Something almost no other mammal does. We literally evolved a design that risks our lives every time we eat, because the ability to speak was worth the trade. That is how important language was. Our biology decided that the ability to make words was worth occasionally dying at dinner. But the throat alone was not enough. The brain needed to change too. And then someone found the gene that made it all possible. In 2001, scientists studying a family in London discovered something that changed everything. 3 generations of this family had severe difficulty with language. Not understanding it, producing it. They struggled to form words, to sequence sounds correctly, and to control the precise muscle movements that speech requires. Researchers traced the problem to a single gene, FOXP2. FOXP2 is not the language gene. That is a myth. Language is far too complex to live in a single gene. But FOXP2 is essential for the fine motor control of the mouth and throat that precise speech demands. Without it working correctly, the muscles simply cannot coordinate at the speed that language requires. And here is the extraordinary part. Chimpanzees have FOXP2 too. Almost identical to ours. But not quite. The human version contains 2 specific mutations that appeared somewhere between 100,000 and 200,000 years ago, right around the time that archaeological evidence suggests modern human behavior suddenly exploded. Art, music, complex tools, long-distance trade, symbolic thinking, all of it appearing within a relatively short window of time. Some researchers believe those 2 tiny mutations in one gene helped unlock the precise physical control that made complex speech possible. 2 changes in one gene, out of 3 billion base pairs in the human genome. And the world was never the same. But even a perfect throat and a perfect gene are not enough to explain language. Because language is not just sound, it is meaning. And meaning needed something else entirely. Here is a theory that most people have never heard. Before words, there was music. Not music with instruments. Not music with melody as we know it. But a kind of musical proto-language. Rhythmic, emotional, communal. Sounds that carried feeling before they carried meaning. Researcher Darwin himself suggested this. That early humans sang to each other before they spoke to each other, using rhythm and tone to communicate emotion in a way that bypassed the need for specific words. And there is evidence hiding in plain sight. Watch any human adult speak to a baby. Their voice changes automatically. It rises and falls. It slows and speeds. It becomes rhythmic and melodic. No one teaches people to do this. It is instinctive. Because before a baby understands words, it understands music. It understands tone. It understands the emotional landscape of sound long before it understands what specific sounds mean. Researchers believe this musical instinct is ancient, far older than language itself, and that language grew out of it the way a river grows out of a stream. Starting as pure emotion, pure feeling carried in sound. Then slowly, over thousands of generations, the sounds began to attach to specific things. That sound means danger. That sound means food. That sound means I need help. And from those first attached meanings, everything else followed. But there was one final ingredient. The one that made language not just possible, but absolutely necessary. Our closest relatives spend enormous amounts of time grooming each other. Not because they are dirty, because grooming is how primates bond. It is how they build trust. How they maintain relationships. How they keep the social fabric of the group from falling apart. But grooming has a limit. You can only groom one animal at a time. To maintain a strong bond with 10 members of your group, you need to spend hours with each of them individually. Every day. Anthropologist Robin Dunbar spent years studying this problem. And his conclusion was striking. Language evolved as social grooming for larger groups. Instead of spending hours physically touching one person at a time, you could talk. You could sit by a fire and bond with 10 people simultaneously. You could tell a story that made everyone around you feel connected to the same experience. You could discuss someone who was not even present. You could build trust with people you had never physically touched. Language did not just carry information. It carried relationship. And as human groups got larger, the pressure to find a better way to bond became overwhelming. Grooming simply could not scale. Language could. A group of 20 people all grooming each other would spend every waking hour just maintaining their social connections. A group of 20 people with language could bond in an hour around a fire, and spend the rest of the day doing everything else. Language was not invented because humans wanted to express themselves. It was invented because humans desperately needed each other, and touch was not enough anymore. Once language existed, it did not just change communication. It changed thinking. Because here is something almost nobody considers. Some thoughts cannot exist without words to hold them. You cannot think about next Tuesday without a concept of the future. You cannot feel guilt about something you did last year without the ability to hold the past in your mind. You cannot plan a hunt that happens in 3 days, in a location you cannot currently see, without language to build the plan inside. Language did not just let humans share thoughts. It created thoughts that could not have existed without it. Abstract ideas. The future. The past. Things that are not here. Things that do not exist yet. God. Justice. Love. Tomorrow. All of them impossible without words to make them real. The cave paintings at Chowbit were painted 36,000 years ago, with perspective, with movement, with a clear artistic intention to make something beautiful. That level of creative thought requires language to exist inside. You cannot make art that complex without first being able to think in abstractions. Language did not record human thought. Language made human thought possible, in the first place. Somewhere between 100,000 and 200,000 years ago, a human mouth made a sound that meant something specific for the first time. Not fear. Not hunger. Not pain. Something with meaning attached. Something shared. Something that existed first in one mind, and then, in another. That moment did not just change our species. It changed what was possible. Every book ever written. Every song ever sung. Every prayer ever spoken. Every declaration of love. Every war ever started with words. Every peace ever made with them. Every question that kept you awake last night. Every answer that finally gave you rest. All of it traces back to that one moment. One voice. One sound. One meaning crossing the impossible gap between two separate human minds. The most powerful tool ever invented by our species was not made of stone. It was not forged in fire. It was not discovered in the ground. It was built from breath. And the moment it existed, the world could never be the same again,